What's up, guys? Welcome back to Lone University. Today I'm reacting to myself. This is an old performance of me playing Scale the Summit's Atlas Novus live at EMGtv. Now, bear with me for a minute. This is a special episode because, believe it or not, over the last few months, I've gotten many requests for this series for me to check out my own performances, Scale the Summit, Tetrafusion, and I thought, that's got to be tongue-in-cheek. That'd be really self-absorbed. But I got to thinking, it could be a lot of fun, and then yesterday evening, I got a Facebook memory pop-up that said, Scale the Summit's The Migration is 10 years old today. So this is a special episode. Happy 10th birthday to The Migration. I'm forever grateful to the guys in Scale the Summit at the time for bringing me on board. I was so inspired. I'm so glad that all these years later, my bass parts are still being appreciated and enjoyed. And that was a time period I just had everything to prove and everything to lose. It was my debut performance with the band. And 10 years later, I'm really blown away that Atlas Novus is Scale the Summit's most popular track on Spotify. It's approaching 7 million streams, something I would have never thought possible. But I'm going to have a little fun with this one and also be reminded that I was 30 pounds lighter during the filming of this recording. So let's check out this loser, shall we? This is Michell, me, playing Atlas Novus by Scale the Summit live at EMGtv. Let's do it. Hey, it's Michell from Scale the Summit here at EMGtv today, playing a few tracks off The Migration. This one is Atlas Novus. I was very nervous, I'll tell you that. I still love this guitar intro. It's just a great atmosphere setup for this song. All right, give you a little tidbit and kind of run you through what was going through my mind here. So this was my first time at EMGtv. You know, so many legendary artists have come through and played there, and it was my turn on the docket to come in and play. This was on the cusp of the release of this album. But this studio looks exactly as cool as it does in the video. And sadly, that facility is no longer there, or it got changed into something else. So I don't think there's any more EMGtv videos that are in this setting. But nonetheless, you had like camera cranes just going on you, zooming around, and there was no punch-ins. They were like, you have to do this in one take or come back another time until you know your song better. So it was very nervous. Now, I got a couple chances to do it. I think we went with take 2 on this. Yeah, but just all in one take, naked, alone, and afraid on this stage. But I'm glad this video got done. It was just a really cool experience. The thing about Atlas Novus, I'm going to preface this video with, is that the bass lines had a chance to be what they were, because if you really listen to this song and ignore the bass, there's a lot of openness. You know, the guitar parts were accenting a chord progression, but they were leaving it very open. There was really no riff aside that main intro, and I think that's what's really appealing, is it had a really nice pop progression, you know, 1 with the major 3, and the effects they used, it just left a lot of open space. There's a lot of singular note stuff going on with the guitars, and it was just kind of a field day for a bass to come in and really just complement the parts, add some counterpoint, and kind of drive the whole feel of the piece all the way to the end. So let's keep going. Gets a little groovier here. And I guess I'll use as a chance to talk about technique too. You'll notice when I do those octave string skips, I'm kind of turning my hand sideways. I talked a lot about this in some other videos, drawing a blank right now, but whenever you do those kind of faster string skips, it's important. You know, you can kind of see me plucking more parallel to the pickups. I would turn your hand a little more parallel to the strings when you string skip. That way you can reach those octaves quicker. Versus having to kind of go like this. You don't have to rock your wrist as much. You can kind of turn your hand just a little bit. I'm talking like less than 45 degrees, just so you can change the axis of attack. So you can kind of see that in motion here. If I go back a little bit, when I do those octaves, just slightly. was so nervous, man. And I know everybody likes this part. That's my Geddy Lee influence coming out there. A lot of those don't take it don't. And I talked about this in the Free Will Rush video I did. You know, Geddy Lee was notorious for doing those kind of like octaves that were kind of fast, but then he would just throw those little gallops in there. Don't get it. And that was my Geddy Lee influence coming out. I think the reason I did a second take is because I messed up this part. This is by far the hardest part of the song to get the feel right. It's a lot of fast jumps. You know, you're going from fret 3 all the way up to fret 12. It's fast, jumping from fret 3 all the way up to fret 14, kind of a fast pushing tempo, and you're kind of going up and down from the E string all the way up to the G string and back down. There's a lot of odd articulations with kind of the open strings, which I use to change positions, which a notable part is, let's see, because I'm up in here in this position with my middle finger on the C. I'm grabbing this A, which is a major sixth up. It's kind of this Lydian sound. And I use that open D string to quickly change it. Just one note's length to grab and completely change positions. That's kind of the key part of getting this bass line down smooth and making sure those long jumps. If you want to get more into the bass parts for this, you can get the migration digital tabs down below. It'll either show the book or it'll be a link in the description, but this all helps support the channel. So if you want to get, you want to have some fun and learn the migration bass parts, this is the hardest part of the piece. Let's keep going. This is kind of another just bass melody. It's also kind of a groove, doing something completely separate than the guitar part. And this guitar part sets up the whole rest, bringing it back. Chris did a great job writing this song. It really is well written. Taking a little whole note break here because it just gets complicated. That switch is hard too. I just love the whole way this part came out. Let's talk about that part real quick. This was a part, and I'm going to give you an interesting bit of trivia about the whole way this album was recorded. I wrote all the bass parts without hearing any drum part. All I had was the guitar parts and a guitar profile, and I did something a little different. I didn't loop the actual demo guitar tracks and just make up ideas. All I had was the guitar profiles. None of this was recorded or demoed yet. There were no drums. Those would come later. I don't quite recall why we did it that way. I think it was just logistics, studio time. I didn't live in Houston with the band, and this was just the best way to do it. So it was a very interesting way to write the album. All I had was guitar parts. So not having a drum groove or a drum beat, I had to just kind of insert my own implied rhythm to a lot of these parts. I had to kind of think what the drums might do. And what ended up happening was I recorded bass before the drums were recorded. Drums were recorded last for this record. Guitars were first, bass was second. It was a very bizarre way. I've never done an album like that, but it came out with a really cool... It made the guitars very forward, it made the bass very melodic, and it kind of implied the drum grooves that ended up coming along, which were great. Pat really killed it. I think he just wanted to kind of be open-ended and let it just kind of ride and see what he came up with. But parts like this, I was like, I don't know what to play because the guitar parts were just going. There was no. It was just a very square rhythm. I thought, well, there's really no riff or chord progression per se. It's kind of open. Maybe I could do a little bass solo, but I felt a bass solo would kind of put it in this kind of jam band territory. The song just didn't call for that spotlight. It was a a weaving of textures in and out, atmospheric, but still held together by this same motif. The G, the B minor, the E, the C minor. It was all just like really well composed. But bottom line, the world was my oyster for a bass player. So I thought, the guitars are doing single notes here. What if I did chords, contrasted? You know, if I came in and was kind of grabbing those single note accents, I think it would have lost its luster. I said, let me go the other direction, a little lower, add a chord progression that wasn't there before, and it will just create this kind of beautiful combination of whatever notes hit. I didn't really overthink it. It was obviously kind of E minor centered, so I thought, I'm going to strum the chord, and then I'm going to complement the guitar part with what they're playing. So as this passage progresses, you get a lot of interesting chord inversions that just kind of hit for a minute. And it just came out so cool. It was like one of those parts I overthought, but once I got it going, I stopped thinking about it because it just sounded perfect. And it's challenging as well because you're basically doing these bar chords. So it's basically E minor to G minor. If you're on a 5-string, you technically could play this part. It's a little harder to, you just have to play it down here. So I started with that. Walking back down to E minor, and then for a second, the guitar started hitting the C note. I think they just hit it once, and it kind of delayed it, but it implied this E over C kind of first inversion C major. And I've seen a lot of bass covers on YouTube for this, that they're playing this part wrong. So if you learn this track, there's one chord that never repeats. It's this. So by changing one note, we go from E minor to a first inversion C major. Changing this 5, or this 5, up here. So that's the only straying from that pattern. And then the right hand, I'm doing tapping. You'll kind of notice my right thumb. This is a great way to kind of have some center of gravity when you're doing these two-handed tapping parts, is to really just move that thumb along the back of the neck, just, you know, tap your note and just let the thumb rest wherever you're at. Because if you're not touching the back of the neck with the thumb, you're kind of just like using your shoulder to kind of get accurate on these high frets. You can't do it. You got to have kind of a fulcrum point. So just let that thumb slide along. You can kind of watch me do it here. Grabbing the neck every time. That way you don't have like this big crane boom arm coming in trying to get the notes. You can just kind of do it from your wrist. So all in all, that part is just a contrast to what was going on. All I thought, to not make it overthought, I just said, guitar parts are doing single notes, I'm going to play chords. Simple. And it came out to be this really cool part. Forgot how it ends. Something like that. Fun part. It was a really cool thing to do live, and yeah, I don't know what other part would have gone there, to be honest with you. It's always fun to think about, go back and look at something you did, was signed, sealed, and delivered, and go, what if I did something different there? But there we are. Let's keep going. Another difficult part. Okay, so you notice this part changes subtly. There's kind of an A part and a B part, and I alter the part when the guitar solo starts. It's to get out of the way of that solo. So I'm kind of establishing what's going on, and honestly, this part was conceived by, how can I come out of this chordal tapping part and still keep that kind of harmonic fullness, if you will, because, you know, this was taking up a lot of space in the mix. If I went from those chords and I just went back into some single note grooves, I feel like the bottom would have fallen out a bit. So I thought, how can I make a variation on this chord part that's still chordal, but gives a little bit more movement, kind of going back to more of a bass line and a hybrid between what I was playing before. Again, I had no drums, so I kind of had to just think how this might come out in the final product. And I started with this groove. The original bass line, I think, was something like... It was kind of like that. I still had some double notes ringing out. It was still within the chord progression, but then I just added these chords on top. Inverted G, A7 maybe, A9. So you kind of have this moving line up top. And I grabbed that straight out of that guitar solo. So it was like, how can I do this bass groove, add some chords, and then still like follow the guitar solo? If you kind of listen to that part there, it's kind of in there subtly in the bass part. So the first part of that, real quick, I kept the movement going. And then when the guitar solo starts, it changes to... I took away some movement because I didn't want to kind of clash too much with that. And that's really the idea of that piece. How can I come out of the chordal section, add a bass groove, complement the guitar solo, and somehow make it all work together? See, it's still kind of in bass mode, bass feature mode right now. And it changes here. That was such a cool place. I think on the album it actually ends like... But I think I just forgot to play it right there, if I recall. And I was like, screw it. I'm almost to the end. This is kind of another little bass melody here. This was kind of a variation on the intro melody. Morphed a little bit, trying to grab some of those guitar notes, but I was trying to harken kind of back to the intro with a little bit more movement to it. So started up top. Something about like that. You'll notice the drum parts for this song really follow the bass part, and that was Pat coming in after me and kind of laying it down. So all in all, just thinking back, that's the only time I've done an album that way, and it yielded really interesting results. I was like, I did it. I did it. Shout out to EMG Pickups for having me out. I've been an EMG artist since 2012. It's my longest running endorsement. I have never been happier with any of the pickups. Tommy over there is fantastic. If I say, I want pickups with a little bit more of this, and there's a set ready to go, I just can't thank EMG enough because these videos are awesome. This was an awesome video to have when this album was kind of popping and we were touring on it. So forever grateful to EMG Pickups. Man, this was a real treat to go back down memory lane and check it out. 30 pounds ago and full of life and touring with the band. I just remember it being a whirlwind of a time. Again, that was my first album with the band. It was the best performing album the band had. I think it was number 131 on the Billboard 200. It was just very exciting. And I look back on this album and all of the songs, I poured every ounce. I felt like I was trying to overplay without overplaying. That was kind of like my whole MO for the record. How can I really imprint this with my sound, be creative, and not having any drums? I wasn't sure where the bass was going to sit, and it ended up sitting a lot more bass forward. And I'm glad people have come to like that. The tone I got on that album was actually from a 6-string Korean import Spectre. A lot of people think I used the Warwick thumbs for that record. I did not. I used a 6-string Legend Spectre. I ran through my Galen Kruger 1001 RB head as a preamp, and then we did some reamping, I believe, with Jamie King up in North Carolina, and that's the tone you hear. And I was using Ernie Ball strings at the time, stock Stewart Spectre design pickups, which are kind of a Spectre's proprietary EMGs. They kind of somehow stock, or that's their arrangement with them. But man, what a great time. I'm still unsure how I feel about putting this video online, but if you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. Comment any other bands that are not me that you would like to see, because there's so many more great bass players to cover. Please subscribe to the channel, and I thank you guys so much for your support. Cheers, and we will see you next time. Happy 10th migration.